Thank you. Hey again, everybody. It's been too long. I have to give Ben some props here because one, there was an app that he taught me about that I have been demoing everywhere. I demoed this at the University of Nebraska. I demoed this on the stage at Social Media Week in New York. It's called Contact Congress, and it is an app that in every way embodies this idea of our representatives as being our employees. And why shouldn't it, right? We hire them, we fire them, we pay their salary. We should have them on speed dial and check up on them. And I have yet to hear from my representative about how she's voting on CISPA. I've been emailing, but no response yet. So I'm not going to do another demo. But what gives me hope is that we have a generation of the sort of the internet enabled who have come to expect to know what Kim Kardashian is having for breakfast. And as an Armenian, it pains me to know what she's doing for our people. But it has created a sense of it has created this expectation that something even as superficial as what she's having for breakfast is something that we have access to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, shouldn't we accept a slightly higher standard? No. Shouldn't we demand a slightly higher standard of our politicians? Right? When we think about access, we think about what they are doing. The technology exists, so I want you always to think of Kim Kardashian's breakfast whenever this point comes up. Well, actually, no, I wouldn't wish that on anyone. All right, so, that is not correct. Let's try that again. And one other note. So I actually studied post-war German history in college. And yes, you're absolutely right, Ben, it was blue jeans, American film, and rock and roll, which is also a great segue into what I'm here to talk about. It is incredible, the pervasive influence of culture, and that's not to say that the culture itself did it. People bring about change, but what fuels these ideas, what sort of lubricates these ideas, is how well they can spread. And whether that's through music or whether that's through a cat photo, I'm really just for the spreading of ideas. This was the basic premise. In 2005, this is the first photo of me and Steve. We had just accepted entry into Y Combinator. Steve Huffman was my college roommate at UVA. And a year earlier, we had started a company together, which ultimately failed. We were told by Y Combinator that we had to change our idea if we wanted to be in the program. And the new idea was Reddit, which today has grown into one of the most trafficked websites on the internet. And it's incredible because when it started, it was just a few links. It was just a way to get people to figure out what was new and interesting online. There was no bigger aim. But I've been very fortunate to have been a part of projects that really give me a tremendous amount of hope, not for Reddit, or even the technology, or even the internet, but really for people when they are connected. And one of the best illustrations of this is my most recent endeavor, involving the great Lester Chambers, who we are privileged to have today. And actually, just to be sure, at what moment should I cut off so we can let them rock? Because I am not going to go over a minute over Lester and Dylan.
You have 16 minutes and 7 seconds.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. So that's me on the Twitter. You can holler at me if you've got any questions. I wanted to start this out with a quote. This is from about 10 years ago. Carrie Sherman, who runs the RIAA, was asked whether or not there was still a need for this association in the internet age. Remember, this was 10 years ago. But even then, people were wondering, hey, this wonderful platform seems to connect artists directly with their fans. Like, do we really need this institution anymore? And you can see his response was very, very to the point about being fair in regards to the ability of people to get paid for their work. That was the underpinning behind it. And it's an interesting quote that I wanted to just plant in your head from Mr. Carrie Sherman. You guys all remember Soap and Pippa. You remember the myth of this being Hollywood versus Silicon Valley, right? And that's a really compelling headline. It is, like a lot of entertainment industry retellings of history, false. It was not Silicon Valley versus Hollywood. The film 300 is not at all representative of the Battle of Thermopylae, spoiler. But what was true was millions of Americans from all over this country said no, right? And we've talked about this time and time again. It was a leaderful movement where people called their representative for their first time, or called their senator for the first time, or retweeted an important link, or signed a petition. This wasn't top down, this was natural, and it was unfunded, and it beat $100 million in lobbying in Washington, which was then unprecedented. And that was really, really amazing to be a part of. But what I saw afterward was, looking back, we started to get real data from the folks at Media Matters about just how effective The powers that be that were pushing SOPA and PIPA were at squelching discussion about it through traditional media. So you'll see on the left, this is TV news coverage, I know it's small, of SOPA versus other stories. The far left, the largest bar there is for the British royal family that had 47 mentions on the evening news programs. And then Tim Tebow, who is still a terrible quarterback, Casey Anthony, Alec Baldwin's plane incident, remember that? The Words with Friends, the fiasco. The Kardashian divorce, at 9. And then lastly, SOPA at 2. And it probably shouldn't surprise you, right? Because, I mean, we could probably have an argument about whether or not Tim Tebow news is really that important. But it's also interesting when you consider all the people signing up for those bills were also running these news networks. But hey, hold on, that was the promise of the internet, right? It would disintermediate the discussion of news. And we could actually say these bills shall not pass, right? We could actually muster enough through social media, through technology, and through just old-fashioned politicking to actually get our message heard as voters. And that was really cool. But we wanted to go forward. In the next year, really do some things to make progress that retells the story of the whole internet versus Hollywood debate, because it wasn't something confined to Silicon Valley, and that's why we took this bus. We actually crowdfunded it on the internet, of course. General manager of Reddit, Eric Martin, and I spent 10 days on this thing going all over the country. We met with founders, we met with farmers, we met with students, we met with jewelers, we met with musicians, we met with truckers, like this dude at a random truck stop somewhere, and I don't even know where this was. We started in Denver, Colorado, and we ended up in Danville, Kentucky. And everywhere we met people who were thrilled by this idea of the open internet, who wanted to do anything they could to help defend it because it was changing the way they lived their lives, whether they were starting companies, whether they were just riding trucks, whether they were farmers who, in the case of one, Tom Parker, checks his email only 3 times a week and yet gets 90% of his orders via the internet. That's a family farmer in the middle of Richmond, Missouri, and his life has been materially changed by this platform, and he will do anything to defend it. So we wanted to put a different story out there, the true story, and so we brought a documentary crew with us, and they filmed interviews all along the way, and this film is we'll be showing some clips of it at South by at the end of the week, and then we're going to be releasing it, pay what you want, of course. I'll personally upload it to BitTorrent in a couple of weeks, because we want it to be seen by all, and we've already had 4 sitting representatives come in for a screening in DC, but this meme, this story, like anything, whether it's a cute cat photo or a documentary about internet freedom, needs to be shared. It needs to be understood. Because this Silicon Valley versus Hollywood, this fabrication is a myth. And the response anytime you hear this come out of someone's mouth should be this: thank you, Vice President Biden, malarkey. It feels so good to say, doesn't it? I'm happy he brought that word back. All right? So that was one endeavor, and it's one that continues to move forward. And fortunately, there are people innovating all over this country and all over this world using the internet who are making those stories even more prevalent and even more shareable. But there was another story that came up when I was in a debate with a professor from University of Southern California, Jonathan Taplin. It was a debate held by Fast Company in New York City, and we were talking about post-SOPA, post-PIPA, what could be done, and he was very much on the side of the entertainment industry. And during this debate, I really tried earnestly to help him understand that our position was one that was actually looking at the internet as a way to empower artists, was actually looking at things, innovations that were going to help the artists that they purported to want to defend. That it was going to be innovation that moved us forward and was going to make it better for artists. And maybe it was going to disintermediate a few labels and entertainment companies in the way, but that was their prerogative. It was their prerogative to adapt. It was their responsibility to adapt. And really, if what you cared about were the artists, you should care about these innovations on the open internet. He did not agree with that, and I told him that times are changing, all right? And I don't know if I'm allowed to use this image, but I think there's some fair use thing. It's fair use, great, okay. The times are changing, and in most industries here in the States, when technology changes, when consumers adapt to new things, it is a business's responsibility to adapt to those consumers, right? That's how this whole beautiful system is supposed to work. And I'll talk about a very personal story, not just because my dad's in the audience, and this is the first time he's heard me speak, but I grew up, so I was born in '83, so in the late '90s, I saw the .com boom, and I remember my dad coming home from work. He's a travel agent, All right, remember that? Travel agents, okay? He would come home from work talking about this internet and how online travel agencies were changing the whole industry. How the airlines who used to supply commissions that paid the bills, that put food on my table, they were going away. And how the industry was radically changing and there was nothing he or any other travel agent could do about it. And the reality was, for so many travel agents, they went out of business. The technology had changed, consumer demands had changed. But what impressed me so much was at no point during this conversation did my dad say, so listen, I'm gonna call up my lobbyist and my lawyer on Washington, and we're gonna make sure that we thwart this technology by any means necessary. Because that is exactly what the content industry has done for decades. There is a long history of this. And yet here was someone, a business person, an entrepreneur who I really respected, who actually was saying, no, I'm going to adapt my business. I am not going to take the route of lobbyists and lawyers. I'm going to innovate, even in face of tremendous consumer change. And good news, shameless plug, Dad's travel agency is still going strong, because he adapted his business. Yeah. And isn't that not the point? I mean, could you imagine the Harvard Business School case study of the entertainment industry? It's like new consumer preferences. What do you do? Right, find lobbyists, go legislate, right? That's the shortest case study, the crappiest case study ever. It's embarrassing that this passes for business, but unfortunately that's been the tact. And the scary thing is the collateral damage is huge. So I want to talk about a very specific story because we know the music industry has changed, right? CDs were cool. My kids are probably not going to know what they were. They'll probably know what LPs are because the sound quality is so good, but they probably won't know what CDs are. But right now I look at so much opportunity. I look at just the start of so much opportunity because a friend of mine who has a Daft Punk tribute via New Orleans brass band can raise $20,000 to get that album made, to get that art created when, listen, I'm not a music industry exec, but I suspect 10 years ago, or 15 or 30 or 50, he probably wouldn't have gotten a $20,000 check from any major label to get that art made. But he could. And this isn't the end game, this is just the first step, this is just the start. We actually just saw a fabulous TED Talk from Amanda Palmer, who famously has raised over $1 million in a single Kickstarter campaign. And she describes how being a musician now on the internet has implored her to think more about this kind of gift economy, to think about the fact that she is going to create her music for free, but she is going to know how to ask her fans to support her to make that art. And she's made it work. And she's one of the early adopters. We were talking about the tech adoption curve, right? And we know that they're at the beginning, but there's still so much more to be done. And so I bring all these things up during the debate, and this is what I get told afterward in an open letter. But what was frustrating, I guess most frustrating, is like I said, this was coming from a very genuine, earnest place where I wanted to show that this model, while it's still in its infancy, is already doing tremendous things. And then this photo went viral. It front-paged on the R Music subreddit, where a bunch of people were trying to identify who this musician was who had the gold record in front of his face, with a sign that I had to crop it here because we've got a horizontal screen, but effectively was not paid for decades after producing hit after hit, for earning a gold record, simply because of a terrible, terrible contract. For decades, his music wasn't being paid for. And this front page, everyone got really excited. The internet started to sort of decode who it was, and sure enough, it was Lester Chambers. And we're thinking, what? Hold on a second. Lester Chambers of the Chambers Brothers is living in poverty today because he's never gotten a check for the work that he's done? Like, that's impossible. How do we live in a world where it's in every video game, it's in every commercial, it's all like the time has come today is seared subconsciously in every one of our brains. How is it possible that an industry that cares so much about being fair to artists, remember that quote, could possibly do this? How could they be okay with this? Well, it was not the case. And so on a lark, I thought, let's try reaching out. Like, do you think this rock legend would actually respond to some internet guy? And sure enough, he did. Thank you for that. And I pitched him on this idea. Listen, I've got my buddy Lerone. He's a filmmaker. Let's fly out to California and shoot a basic trailer for a Kickstarter campaign. You know, if you're still making music, you're still rocking, like, let's tell your story and let's see if we can fundraise some money so you can have your own album, an album you will wholly own 100% of. I don't want anything. I just want to see this happen. Because it's one thing for me to get on stage and have a debate with a guy and say, no, here's how this system can work. And it's another thing for me to get on stage with a guy and say, no, here's how we did it. So they very graciously welcomed me into their home and we talked. And I could not believe the things I had heard. We sat for, gosh, like an hour and change. There's tons of great footage. But we'd hear stories about how, during all of this, during all the success of the Chambers Brothers, they would still have a record company sending them to abandoned lots where they didn't have anyone to play music for, because at the time, the company wasn't really that interested in promoting their band. They had other bands on the label, and they just wanted to kind of push them aside. And so they would actually send them with records, like free music. The labels were telling them, give away this music, we don't want it. That's right. Decades ago, they were giving away music. We don't want it. They would charge them for it after the fact, which was not very cool. But they would continue to try and sabotage this band because they had sort of fallen out of favor with them. But one of the most egregious things that I couldn't believe as I heard it was this is, of course, the iconic album cover for Time Has Come Today. And as we're talking about this, here these brothers were so excited about this record opportunity, Columbia Records, this is going to be fabulous. They saw the first album art for this record, and they looked at it, and they were like, who are these white guys? They had replaced all of the Chambers Brothers with models, white dudes, because the record company didn't think that the audience was quite ready for this. So it wasn't the time. They didn't want to see Time Has Come next to a bunch of black dudes. Like the record company with a straight face said, no, we know what's best. It's to not have you on the cover of your own album. Now, thankfully, they protested. They got this changed, and this is the album cover and not the one with the random white dude actors. But you hear stories like this, and it's gutting because it embodies all of the worst assumptions we have about this industry. No, it's not all of it. But to hear these stories and then to see that juxtaposed with a father and son who still remain so positive, it's absolutely inspirational. It makes the rest of us, makes other sons look terrible when you know that Dylan promised his father he'd stay with him. So you know what? Fuck all that. Fuck this. This is wrong, right? The internet can actually do something about this, because between fans of the Chambers Brothers and fans of the open internet and everyone in that Venn diagram in the middle, we could get a campaign started. And so we did. Because the internet does a pretty good job getting supply to meet demand, right? So you shoot a video, you start arranging a few shows in San Francisco, you get sketch artists coming up to doodle artwork of the discussion, and before long you can actually end up on the front page of CNN.com. That was on Christmas Eve. On Christmas Day, or was it the 26th? They were actually on CNN, killing it, having a chat with these anchors about this campaign, because the ideas can start spreading. Once you get that critical mass of people talking about stuff online, you can't help but say, oh, this seems like an interesting story, sure, we'll pick it up. So it was actually a really good symbiotic relationship there between new and old media. And so lo and behold, we raised $61,000 for Lester's album. Lester's Time Has Come Today. The goal was about 39. We did a little bit better. And all of that money, minus a few fees to Kickstarter and Amazon, are going to Lester. But it gets even better, right? Because one of the things we do at Bread Pig is we like to say that we want to sort of pay it forward. And so we'll donate a portion to worthy related nonprofits. We publish a book, we donate to literacy nonprofit. Before I could even approach Lester and Dylan, he was like, listen, I want to make sure a portion of these proceeds actually go and help the nonprofit that kept me alive for the last few years called Sweet Relief. This is a nonprofit wholly dedicated to helping artists who have been screwed by the industry and now live in poverty. Now, that should be a sign, right, that there's a nonprofit dedicated to taking care of artists who've been screwed by the industry. But so Lester, to his credit, said, no, I want to make sure I pay some of this forward to the nonprofit that helped me too. This is humanity. This is just people. This isn't to praise Reddit or Kickstarter. This is people using this platform, the internet, to connect. And so when I see stuff like this, when I see quotes like this, the quote that I started with, and whenever any of you hear that, no, all we care about is artists' rights, the reason we are doing this is for artists' rights, you know exactly what to say. Malarkey, because that's what it is. And so it's with great honor, it's a great privilege to be introducing Lester and Dylan Chambers. I never thought I'd be an opening act for rock legends, but